We're going to start in a second. I am very excited about what we're going to do today. And obviously, I am not alone today, but I'll introduce my guests today in a second. For everyone who is joining, let me do some housekeeping so that we can actually be on together. So first of all, if you have never been to a webinar of TheyDo before, it's great to know that we're actually going to be asking you to join, have live interaction with us. So look at the chat below to test out if it works, which I see people do. Just say your name and where you're from. I'm seeing a lot of people already from all over the world. Mike from Atlanta, hello. Christina from Frankfurt, Rosanna from Mexico City. Well covered. I'm happy we could find a time that suits almost everyone in the world. Apologies if it's very early or very late to you. We're going to get started in a second because today is very exciting. We are going to have a first look at the TheyDo Agent. And like I said, I'm not going to do it alone. I am joined today by Rebecca Dickson, who is from our team. She's on the solution engineering team. Hey, Rebecca, glad that you could join us.
Hi, everyone. Great to meet all of you. I'm excited to walk you through some of the features today.
Very cool. And also we have Louise. She's joining from YouSee, one of our customers and one of the people that actually had access to TheyDo Agent for quite a while. Louise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to share my experiences.
Yeah, that will be fun and exciting. So I suggest we just keep going. So let me put my screen on and then I think we can have some fun together. So we are going to have a very exciting big group today. We're going to have a look at the TheyDo Agent. And again, this is going to be interactive. It's going to be fun. Louise is going to be here to share her stories and experience, but also be here for the Q&A because today we'll do a live reveal. But for all your questions, for all the things that you want to say, share, or ask us, Louise, Rebecca, myself, or all of us, just use the chat. We'll do live Q&A at the end. We're a very big group today. Hundreds of people are joining. So please be okay if we can't get all your questions done. I promise to get as many as we can. But before we go in and really have a look at actually what we are going to do with the TheyDo Agent, let me go and talk to Louise a little bit. I want to start with you because you have had access a little bit, but maybe for people who don't know, YouSee, one of the bigger telcos in the Nordics, you're working there in the core customer experience operations. You're getting a ton of questions to field, to help, to build the business, to analyze. Like, it's mayhem. I mean, that's my impression after having to meet you and the team for a little bit. But walk us through a little bit, like what is actually going on in your world right now where people can put you. And then I want to get into a little bit of your story.
Yes. Yes. So I work at YouSee, which is the largest telco provider in Denmark. I work in the CX and journeys team, and we basically, what we do in our team is that we create the overview of all the journeys. We are responsible for some journeys, but we also help people gain insights and research across the whole business, which is multiple different product areas. Which spans from when people buy the internet to when they have troubles with their television or streamings, or when they want to leave their mobile subscription. So it's a vast amount of things that, and we're not that many people, so.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. And many of the customer experience groups in most of the enterprises that we work with, that we're dealing with, that everyone who is actually joining us today is probably in or working with, faces the same challenges, right? It's not like we have infinite amount of people, but we do have infinite amount of problems to solve, questions to field, data to analyze, just like you. And one thing that stood out when we were giving you access and you were trying some of the early capabilities, and there was a really nice story on some churn analysis that your team had done, and some of your colleagues tried to access that. Can you just tell me what was going on that day that actually like led you to solve it in a different way than like the traditional maybe way of doing customer experience?
Yes, so I was sitting, at my desk doing all the CX journey work that I do all day. And then I can see, I could see someone requesting access to a PowerPoint that I did half a year ago. And in these big enterprises, PowerPoints are being passed around, and sometimes different accessibility, permissions are lost. So you need to grant people access to the PowerPoints. So one of my colleagues, he requested, and I granted her access. And I was like, okay, this time I'm going to chat her up to see what she needs. And it's been 6 months and I haven't heard from her. And I said, okay, so what do you need? And should we set up a meeting? And she was very busy. And she said, can you just give me the 5 pain points of why people are churning in this journey and what we need to fix? And I mean, given that it was 6 months ago, it wasn't like on the top of my list. So I was like, oh, maybe I still try it again. Can we set up a meeting like tomorrow, and then I can prepare? And I could feel the conversation just dying out. And then I waited a bit and I was like, okay, I know I have this journey in TheyDo, and we have asked TheyDo, and I've been working around with the documents and the other features. So I just prompted basically what she had written to me in the message. I just said, okay, give me the top pain points of this journey and how we could deliver and how we could solve the problems. I created a document and then I sent it to her. And then I just waited, for the 3 dots in the chat to kind of come back. And then she started asking questions. Okay, so this insight, where did you see that? And where did you, So, and then she worked that in. So I think that kind of just made it really easy for me to help her with her request in the pace that she was asking for.
I love this story, and we're gonna get into like what TheyDo Agent does specifically, and then how it actually like helps you to do this, because this is one example of a business peer asking for a specific access to a deck because she knew there was something there. But I guess you're getting a lot of these questions all the time. And for people listening in, I guess that's a similar situation, right? I mean, this is not like a one-off that it just happens on a Monday afternoon. Like this is happening all the time. What about time we live in that we don't need to field all this like rote work assignments all the time anymore? So I'm curious, like just a little poll, just for fun. Like when you hear another exec, like, hey, what's changing in our CX this quarter, like Louise had with this churn thing, like how long did it takes till your team actually to provide a solid answer, right? Typically, I don't know, Louise, what's your experience? Like it's hours, it's days. I was talking to a bank the other day, and they used to do hardcore journey analysis, and it takes them weeks to produce an executive-ready report, right? Quick insight is easy, but like actually something that trusts like is sometimes weeks. So I'm not sure like what is average for you, Louise, and then seeing for people, like what do you think?
I think it's weeks for us as well, depending on the area and the channels and stuff. But weeks would be, it's not days, not if it. And it depends on the area as well. Sometimes it's months.
The audience today is in a similar boat, right? 1 to 2 weeks, 40% actually. And when we look at what people are actually saying, 3 to 5 days is also like a quarter, sometimes even longer. There's not many people that say 1 to 2 days, or the same day is just 9%, which is awesome, by the way. Kudos to you. That's a hell of a result. So you're very effective, or you're a very large team, or you just get a little less requests than Louise. But I think like this is showing us the problem a little bit, what is going on today. There's more data than ever. There's more questions than ever. But there's also realization that there's more need for shared context, that we actually are looking at things the same way. It was great to see that your colleague, Louise, was actually coming to you requesting access to a deck and not just like trying to reinvent the data herself. So that's already a plus. But it just underlines like what we're up to and what we're up to as an organization. But what's your take, Louise, before we go into the rest of today and start showing people what we are actually talking about? Are we focusing on the right things? Because what I'm seeing is there's a lot of emphasis today with AI on let's build, let's generate solutions, let's focus on that. But what we're actually saying is let's free up the work from the scarce resource we have, the people that have great judgment, can empathize with our customers, can do proper research, and free them up from time to actually go and dig deeper. Is that what is exciting for you at YouSee, or is there something else at play as well?
I think what's important I think the biggest challenge is the communication challenge. The researchers always, UXers, researchers, service designers, we're very passionate about the data, but sometimes we might lack the communication skills because we tend to just want to show people the whole journey and not the things that is actually important to them. So you need to understand what's important to the people that are requesting the data and that are looking to actually get out in the business. So I think it's really something about communicating it in the right measure and in the way that people so they understand the insights properly and can use them in their work.
For years, the customer experience team was trying to get a seat at the table. I think like it's actually changing right now because what we've silently been building, and I mean, we had a tongue-in-cheek announcement for this webinar, right? Customer experience will be the most strategic function the enterprise has. But what is actually happening is there's a lot of foundational work in many of these organizations and many of your organizations and you as well, Louise, that have provided like this contextual layer. And now we're entering this AI first, this agentic operations world where all of a sudden we can use this, not just for people, but also for AI. So let me weave into our story for today. I need some help with my tech team to get my screen up here, and then we can actually start with today. So what we're going to do is I'll set the stage a little bit, following on Louise's story and talking about the role that we're seeing shifting in customer experience, but also the perspective that we've been building, the context layer that we've already been building, are actually going to make it incredibly useful and introducing the TheyDo Agent, what it can do, and actually like how it's helping us, not only with storytelling, but also with almost running autonomous customer experience. So we're freeing up the teams to do the work that we are actually wanting to do. So for those who know TheyDo, this is a key stat that keeps coming up, and I think it hasn't changed. Like 80% of our businesses, including YouSee, including everyone who's tuned in, like our leaders say we're customer-centric, we're customer-obsessed, we have a strategy, we are putting it in one of our strategic pillars, it's in the board decks, it's in our annual statements, it's everywhere. Except customers don't agree, only just a handful, they think we are customer-centric. Now, what is actually going on today in our AI world is that the problem to get customer context is actually magnified. It's not easier, it's actually getting harder because we have built a lot of systems into different teams, and actually like connecting them is resulting in the biggest problem that we're facing. So what we are seeing is that we have obviously our BI, our business performance set up correctly with dashboards. We have our dollars, we have our KPIs. Then we're capturing customer experience in another place. We have our surveys, we're doing analytics, we're doing primary research. Like it is there, but it's still not connected. And then we have all the individual customer interactions, whether it's like through our agents or chat that we're having interaction through with our customers. We're capturing their digital footprint. We're doing analytics on all of the interactions that they're having with us. But basically, it was fine before AI to have all these different teams, have all their own like data silos and have their own KPIs and dashboards. And then customer experience teams, design teams were bound to use the journey to maybe get some of that in place, but certainly not connect all the dots. And actually, like, it's worse because it is going all over the place. And if we're not intentional about it, there's so much more data coming in, so much more data collected, that it is not yet a solved issue. But before we go and talk to or show a little bit about what we're doing, how many places, like, think about Louise's story, how many places do you have to go to answer a simple question like, oh, how did our churn evolve over the last 6 months, right? That deck was 6 months old, and now there's a new request coming in on the same problem, but obviously our data has changed. So maybe like, let's do one more poll for everyone, like to build like a simple quote unquote customer experience update on churn, for example. Like, how many data sources does your team need to pull from to actually get that in place? So 1, 2, 3, we got this under control. 4 to 6, 7 to 10, more than 10. And also someone has to reconcile them manually. I guess that's not the same people that were just able to file the update and get something done on the same day. It's like more work, probably the people that need to spend weeks on actually pulling that together. Like in small environments, it's easy, but like in the enterprise, on so many different teams, multiple brands, multiple markets to work with, it's incredibly difficult to pull that together, right? So I'm seeing it 4 to 6, 7 to 10. If you just add them up, like that's 2/3 of the audience today. And I think like that's pretty on point with what we are seeing in the market. There's all these different data sources, manual, sometimes not even connected, sometimes homegrown, and we need to bring them all together. Now, I hope that I'm preaching to the choir that we all know that customer journey is to experience what a database is to BI. But what it also is starting to do, it is actually able to pull all these different data sources together because it provides a new structure, a context that is standardized, that's scalable, that all these different data can flow into because it maps onto the actual phase or step that the customer is having an interaction with you. But it also brings together the relations between these data and says, hey, what is happening before, during, and after that interaction? And that's what makes it so exciting today, that all these customer experience functions, like the one Louise is operating in, have done a lot of groundwork on bringing that context together already. And now in this AI first operations that we're all trying to run, the customer journey is actually like the cornerstone in bringing this all together. Now, there's one way that I think is super helpful when thinking about running an AI-centric operation in customer experience, when we're focusing on the internal role of our business. And that is that thinking about how actually like the AI landscape looks like. And this is one that I'm actually using a lot, where I put like 2 axes in on generative AI. I mean, everyone talks about Gen AI, but like AI has many flavors. And then analytical AI, like generative AI is like AI produces the work. And then on the analytical side, it's like there is already work and AI is reviewing it. But what is interesting, and where journeys come in, and we're going to talk about, is actually like what is grounded in truth and what isn't grounded in truth. So some examples. If we think about generative AI that is grounded in truth, the most easy example is coding. Like when you let AI generate code and you run it, it either works or it doesn't. It's pretty binary. So it is grounded in truth because it either does work or it doesn't work. Ads optimization, math proof are other examples there. And when we think about AI not generating the work, but actually doing the analysis on the work, and it's still grounded in truth, like a great example would be fraud detection. There's models, there's ways that we can understand whether someone did or didn't do something fraudulent. And then AI is analyzing it based on historical data and models. Now, if we move to the ungrounded, no shared truth, what was happening before is that we had AI producing the work, but we don't know if it's right. And that's where our human judgment is important. And in the bottom right, it's even harder because there we don't have a shared truth and AI is analyzing the work that's already there. So that's where I'm seeing like journey maps used to be on the right side and CX prioritization used to be on the right side as well. But what is interesting is that today, with the capabilities that platforms like TheyDo are bringing, we're actually moving it to the left. We're moving it to grounded. I don't think we're there to say, oh, once like a journey framework is there, it's grounded in truth. We don't need human judgment. No, on the contrary, we do need it. But all the road work that goes into bringing all these data together so that we have some shared context, that is very interesting to solve with AI. And once it's there, using it to analyze, using it to understand what is actually going on is going to help us move from ungrounded all the way to grounded as far as we can get. And we like to say in this world, it's like AI quality is not necessarily an AI problem. It's actually a data management problem, because crap in is crap out, as we all know. So what we have been building at TheyDo is we have actually split 3 layers from the journey management approach that we've had and compartmentalize them. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, there's the enterprise layer. That's where the data and the permissions, your existing knowledge, the integrations, the data is actually coming from. But also like who has access to what, your roles in their different organizations, making sure that all of that is sound. So that is on the enterprise layer. But what we have been doing on a journey management layer is bringing all these data together in a specific context, right? We had journeys, we had frameworks. We're gonna introduce a couple of new things today, collections, charts, docs, which are very exciting. But what is most important is that on top of this, we're building the agentic layer for running your experience operations. And together, these 3 layers you need to have in place to actually be able to have full customer context for your business, for your teams, so that you can, like Louise, field any questions that are coming in, build executive reports every week, every month, whenever they are necessary, help your PMs with preparing their product increments, their sprints, and make sure that it's all grounded in the same customer truth. And by splitting these layers, we're actually bringing journey management as the data management layer in. And today we're going to show you the agentic layer on top of it, and we're going to talk a little bit about the future. But I'm getting ahead of myself, and instead of me demoing it, I thought it would be great to bring Rebecca to all of you, but also she's way better at storytelling than I am, I guess. So we're going to hear from Rebecca and let her give you a first look at the TheyDo Agent today. All the questions you're having, put them in the chat. We're going to reveal, we're going to show, and we're going to have live Q&A after Rebecca is done, and I'll guide us through it, and I'm sure Louise can chime in as well. So with that, let me just hand it over to Rebecca, because we're all very excited to show you what we've been building, especially on the TheyDo Agent layer.
Perfect. So thank you, Jochem. We are very excited to walk you through what we've been building. And what we're going to do today is bring Louise's story to life in the context of what could happen with our business executive leader, Jen, our CX leader, Sally, and our practitioner, Stephen, who makes it all possible. Now, I'm sure many of you have received a message like this one. A message that says, "Hey, Sally, I need to understand what's changed in our customer experience this quarter, what needs attention, what's ready to fund, and how it impacts churn. Can you create a document for me, please?" Before we continue, notice the date on this message, Friday, 4 p.m. The budget meeting is 9 a.m., Monday morning. Sally receives this message, and she is not afraid, because she knows that her team has been building context inside TheyDo over the last quarter. Here, she can see 5 phases grounded in real experience data. Data that all of the teams that she oversees have been curating inside of TheyDo. All of this data rolls up neatly into her telco customer lifecycle journey. So she knows that instead of having to miss her family barbecue at 6 p.m., her weekend isn't ruined because the answer is already here. She opens TheyDo Agent and she types Jen's question directly into the message. She also knows Jen, so she asks it to create a document for her, including a churn rate metric and a chart showing the solutions by status. Sally is now talking to the agent the way she would talk to a member of her team. So instead of needing to assemble a task force quickly and keep people late at the office over the weekend, what she's doing now is just asking the agent, hey, can you help me come up with this report? And what you'll notice is that the agent is now reasoning across all of the context. It's pulling in insights from specific phases and steps. It's cross-referencing qualitative signals from VOC systems like Medallia and Qualtrics against your quantitative metrics pulled in from systems like Snowflake, Databricks, and Power BI. It's identifying which opportunities have evidence behind them. It's also identifying which solutions the team has been actively working on by referencing systems like Jira and Azure. It's reasoning over all of the context that Sally's journey management team has been building over the last quarter. So it's not generic knowledge. It's grounded in specific moments from her team. Before the agent creates a document, it ensures that it understands the question, confirming the title and the content. Sally approves this, and once she does, the agent starts to move forward to create that document. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is all that took in order for the agent to actually create a document for us that includes everything, including churn rate, what needs attention, what happens next, what's ready to fund. So Sally now has all of this context in 3 minutes. She can click into churn rate, quickly view the metric, see the impact that her team has had, see the impact after they launched the solution, the churn rate started to fall, and then she can continue to read through the document and really understand, what has my team accomplished this quarter, what are they still working on, and what needs further funding. So this is not just the narrative. This becomes the funding conversation, and it ensures that teams are not duplicating across silos, and it's bringing in feedback, metrics, and roadmap items all into one place. The TheyDo Agent has effortlessly visualized all of that data for us in under 3 minutes. Now, Sally and her team can walk into the room prepared, credible, with the context that they already built, overcoming some of those communication challenges that Louise referenced, because now we have an indication of exactly how we're trending and what our recommended next steps are, all sourced back to the work that Sally's team was building. So now, because Sally and her team were able to come so prepared, I want you to imagine with me. Imagine that because we have all the answers, the board says yes to all of the funding requests. Sally now needs to send her product team a message that's quick and clear. So instead of just showing the teams a version of this document, what she's able to do is ask the agent to reuse this context and to create an operational strategy document for the head of product using the same underlying evidence, shaped into what a product leader needs to see in order to kick off their next sprint. What you're seeing now is, again, the agent taking all of that context, reading across the document, and ensuring that it can reframe all of that information into what the product leader needs. The context is built once, and it's used across the organization. So every team gets to start with the single source of truth. And that source of truth is then shaped around their conversation. So that means that the product leader isn't trying to put together different fragmented insights or figure out what he needs to do in order to make his next sprint possible. He can come in and actually just read through the document that's being created directly for him. Now we have a product sprint strategy. So from a communication standpoint, we have the same context reframed for the teams that need it. The problem we're solving with the sprint, the different sprint priorities, how that impacts businesses, and how that impacts actual metrics, along with what needs to be accomplished this quarter and by whom. So now we have that document all in one place, accessible to the right stakeholders at the right time. This is what ensures that CX teams stop being the translators and the makers of slides, but they become the ones that are actually guiding the strategy. But behind each of these great documents is someone like Louise, or in our case, someone like Stephen, someone who makes all of this context possible. Stephen spends a lot of his time working on different journeys throughout the organization. And the one he's going to look at today is this one, the daily device journey. We now know that Stephen needs to do the foundational work. He spends a lot of time curating the insights, making sure that the insights are correct, making sure that the opportunities are all linked to insights, and then again linked to solutions and tagged appropriately. The framework, the structure, the taxonomies, and all of this shared language are what centers of excellence often spent months trying to socialize across their teams. And this work is really important. But we recognize that sometimes it's entirely operational and it can be hard to scale. What TheyDo Agent allows us to do is make scaling possible. The framework, the structure, the taxonomies are all now governed by Stephen, and he's able to govern that using one prompt. So instead of him having to manually make all of those links, with one action, he can use a skill to actually govern everything in his workspace. We can tell the system to use the Insights template and the Opportunity Finder to help curate insights, update opportunities, and link the pain points together in a scalable way. Now, instead of Stephen needing to do all of that work manually, the agent is starting to do that for him. So, the agent is trained on journey management best practices. It understands the journey structure, it's reading the document, and it's cross-referencing everything that's in his journey. And it's also now referencing how the organization speaks when it comes to what makes up an insight, what's a required field for an insight. How do we start to ensure that not only do we have the right fields and the right language, but how do we make sure that everything is consistent? The agent is now coming back with what it found. It's coming back with all of the opportunities where maybe there's some duplication that Stephen missed. It's also coming back with everything that needs to be updated in order to bring this journey in line. So instead of having to go through and try and govern every team that gets brought into the fold and every single group. Now, using this skill, we have the ability to understand what actually needs to happen to make this journey map consistent with the rest of the organization and consistent with something that makes journeys actionable. This is what enables us to scale without adding headcount. Now we can ask the agent to either do all of these things, or we could ask it to do just one thing. So I'm going to now ask it to do C, help wire the solutions to the opportunities. So now in just a couple of steps, Stephen is able to govern his entire workspace. He doesn't need to update all of his tagging. All of this is being done for him so that he can focus on doing the work that's actually really relevant to what he does best, shaping the narrative, deciding what needs to happen, deciding what opportunities should be linked to what solutions, and verifying the outputs. So this is really interesting because the agent is now returning specific gaps that need to be fixed. And it's helping me to ensure that this journey map is related back to what I need. It has the right governance standards, and it's done all of the work for him. So we can see that this agent now has linked all of the solutions to the opportunities, and it's providing us the details of all of the work that it just did. That allows us then to come back to check our activity log and to see what the agent actually did. So again, we have this great spot where we're not doing things in a black box. We're actually taking the AI and we're moving all of this into the customer's view, making it available for you to understand what did the agent actually do and how did it save you time. So this helps you ensure that everything you're producing is now speaking the language of business and outcomes, and you understand the work that the agent has done, but it saved you a lot of time, so now you can get to resolutions faster and decisions faster. So now that the agent has all of that context and was able to do all of that great work for us, Stephen can now move on to something a little bit more complex. Complex in that the situation he's now walking into is one where a merger occurred, a merger between his organization and another organization, Jupiter Systems. Stephen now needs to be able to read through different feedback, different surveys, and different comments to really be able to understand how does Jupiter Systems support devices daily. But before he just runs these files blindly, he needs to understand what's actually in these files. So TheyDo gives us a great way to be able to aggregate all of our data together and then to be able to see what is the content of those specific files, what's the experience impact, which personas are impacted, and when was the file actually uploaded? So how relevant is that data? We are able to go back to this specific quotes library because now every single quote extracted from those files is visible and traceable back to the origin. We can look at new data as it comes in, and we can apply it to our journey. So now, Stephen has the ability to select these sources and to prompt the system to enrich the daily device journey with new insights using our insights document. So we're going to add those sources to Ask TheyDo and ask it to do that for us. When we do that, what the system is now going to do is take those three sources and all of the data that we just reviewed, and it's actually going to apply it to our daily device usage journey. Instead of Stephen needing to do that himself and curate all of those insights, what he can now do is actually list out the different categories and we can watch as the agent starts to do its work. It's listing the categories, it's analyzing what needs to be done, it's tagging the data. And so now he didn't just need to review that data, all of that data comes together and it reflects the output that he knows he needs to be able to present back to Sally and the executive team. We can see the agent has now curated the insights, created new insights for us, and we're now going to apply those directly to the journey, placing them in the right steps at the right time. So all of this is really helpful because it allows us to look at what was mapped and where was it mapped in our journey. Now he has all of this new data in the journey, and he can know that that is all governed by the documents that he created. So from an insights perspective, he is in control of what gets put into the document, what gets put into every insight. He's in control of what's required and how the organization speaks about all of the specific insights. He didn't just ask the system to bring all of that data in line. He actually analyzed the sources, understood what was happening, and was able to then create all of that in the language of the business and in the language of the business outcomes. So for Stephen, a practitioner who inherited a messy set of unstructured merger data, he was able to just align that within one prompt. Instead of spending weeks trying to reconcile the data by hand, Stephen can now walk into some of those post-merger conversations with a complete picture and a clear point of view. That's what earns CX teams a seat at the table and makes them the most strategic in the enterprise. Now, I'm sure that many of you already know that having the context is not enough. The way that most organizations answer distribution questions is with a deck. But the problem with a deck is that it often creates digital dust. It collects digital dust because once it goes out of your hands, it's already stale. But what we want to be able to do is bring all of that data together and make sure that we're adding filters that are relevant for the right people, ensuring that we have the right context permanently accessible without rebuilding it every cycle. We add in Jupyter Systems here as an insight, and we are then able to bring all of this together here in one view. As new data comes in, the data that's tagged with Jupyter Systems is now available to the right stakeholders. We have the right context, we've applied the taxonomy, and every insight, including all of the pain points and observations, are now surfaced here in one place. So the information isn't going stale. It's always available as new data is coming in, and this view is now saved for everyone. And because the view is live, Jupyter Systems, because the view is live, we can now actually say we're confident in the data that's coming in, and we can start to look at just this slice of data. So when someone asks the agent a question about Jupyter Systems, it's not reasoning across the entire workspace. It's now only reasoning across the data that we've provided it. So the agent can now reason over this slice of data and provide the most relevant context available for faster access and faster decisions. So I see there was a question from Fernanda about the level of accuracy. We love to talk about this because we know that our models typically score between 80 to 90% in accuracy, and we're very pleased with those results. Of course, we do encourage human review. You are always encouraged to review what comes next and review the outputs that the AI has given you, But we know that AI helps us to get 80% of the way there and reduce a lot of that manual work that you may have been doing before. So when we were training our agents, we're really giving it all of the data that we have here and all of the data that's coming in from the data hub. So surveys, feedbacks, call transcripts, interviews, session data, legacy decks, and we're bringing it all together into one view so that you can then start to leverage that in some of those summaries that you have. That then enables you to take all of that data and not just save it as a journey view. We can actually start to save it in a collection. And what the collection does is it actually provides us the ability to have all of the data in one place and make sure that we're looking at the right slice of data in the workspace. So if we go back to our Jupyter Systems example, what's great about this is this doesn't become stale. We add in all of the context that we need to keep Jupyter Systems updated. We add in dashboards, solutions, opportunities, and insights. And then we can come in here and actually start to see all of the different pieces of data around Jupyter Systems. And instead of needing a deck, what we've done is actually created a curated and dedicated space where we can package all of our context together so that if someone has a question about a certain market or a certain business unit, we can capture that from the journey, from the saved view, and bring it in and add it as context to our collection. This allows us to make sure that we have all of the data in one place. So when Jen comes in and she wants to know what's changed this quarter, and what needs funding, she can come in and just ask that to the system without needing to send a message to her team and without needing to wait 2 to 4 weeks for an answer. Whenever Stephen updates the journey, the collection references it, and the agent produces a new document for the next quarterly cycle, which gets added back to the collection. So now we can be confident that the data doesn't go stale because it's not just a snapshot, it's a living, breathing system of journeys that can all be created, and it explains what's changed, and it publishes a document for us. A document that can then be exported easily for your executives, brand it with your colors, showing us key insights for the quarter, what things we need to work on, what our active opportunities are, etc. And all of this data is easily exportable into PDF so that now you have all the context that you're building ready for the right people at the right time. So Sally no longer gets that Friday message anymore, not because Jen stopped asking it, but because the answer is already there, something that Jen can actually access. This ensures that the CX team's job is not to keep stakeholders informed on demand, it's to actually make sure the right context is always where it needs to be. Everything you saw today follows the same thread. Jen asked a question, Sally answered it in minutes, the board funded the work, the product team got their brief, Stephen built Jupyter Systems context, and it never has to be rebuilt. The saved view and the collection means that all of this work now scales. And so Jen never has to ask the question because she can easily surface it in under 3 minutes. Instead of CX being a reporting function, you've now been elevated to the most strategic functions in the enterprise. So with that, I'll pass it back to Jochem.
Nice. So nice, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your diligent presentation, like showing us around. Like this is the first time we're showing it to people, and I'm seeing based on the questions, like there's a lot of like, how does this work? How about this? How about that? most of the things that you're seeing are actually rolling out today. So before we go into the QA, what Rebecca shared, Adrian, can you give me my screen back on the presenter? Then I'll actually weave us into the next bit of this, because TheyDo Agent is just the beginning of what we're actually going to be doing. Because what we've just seen is building context is what we have been doing for a long time. But now you're going to do it together with TheyDo Agent, because we're launching what you saw Rebecca use, which was the actual edit mode it can do on your behalf. To deliver intelligence, we have docs, we have collections, we have views, so that you can actually starting to really track CX business impact, recurring. You don't need to field all these questions one by one anymore. So for people who actually are already a TheyDo customer, these capabilities are, as we speak, rolling out. So if you are a customer and AI is enabled in your workspace, in your organization, your admin can actually activate it and you are ready to roll with the capabilities. If AI is not enabled, definitely recommend you to contact your CSM so we can get that sorted. And if this is interesting to you, we're actually building, Rebecca and our team, demos with your data, so you can actually fact check for yourself, is it working in our case, and how does that actually is coming together. But there's one more thing, because we do realize many of our people, teams, and executives are already using their LLMs, whether it's Copilot, Claude, GPT, to actually interact with all these enterprise systems, but it's lacking the context, the customer context, the experience context. So what we are also building, and which is going to be in beta release soon, is TheyDo MCP. So that you can bring people into TheyDo, you can have them interact with the data through collections, but we're also allowing you to shape the data in a way that you find that is the context you want to bring to have people get access through their LLMs. So it's not going to be bound just by sharing presentations, which I believe is not the right way. I mean, sometimes we do need to create a board deck, and that is a presentation. I mean, that's still going to be the way forward. But in many cases, it's going to be way more dynamic. And with that, we're going to do a couple of Q&A, and I hope Louise will be also chiming in with us. Very, very cool. Louise, I'm going to start with you, because there's a question from Olga Strauman.
Yes.
It's saying, how do you monitor the reliability of the agent? Connection builds, conclusion draws, opportunity mapping, and so forth. And I can say how we're doing it technically. I'm really curious, what is your experience?
I think when using AI, you need to do good prompts, and then you need to take the data always. And I think when we've been testing docs, there's some in the beginning we needed to prompt it a couple of times, but I think just the quality is just getting better and better, and it's just really and then also the ability to really edit the different parts of the documents with the prompts as well really makes it easy. So it's not doing everything over like you would do if you were using another GPT or an agent like Copilot. You can kind of work on the data continuously, which I think is very nice.
Yeah. We're going to be doing some more deep dives on stage probably over the next couple of months that are live, and you can attend them, because what you're describing is true, right? Selecting a piece of data and just rewrite it, add more data to it. Inside that doc, there's agent collaboration with you. You can also collaborate with your other people in that doc live. But I think the language thing is interesting, because Scott Damo, I hope I pronounced that right, said also something like, how does the agent train to understand how we speak? And one of the things that Rebecca showed today was her building hey, here's how we're actually building an insight. These are our rules. This is our principles. This is what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So training the agent, and this is an area we're investing in, is giving it the skills to have your rules of governance, your rules of operation, your understanding of what the Jupyter brand, the Jupyter Systems brand means. So training is continuous, and it is also up to you to help agent understand your context. So it's not just the data in, it's also shaping the way it's operating inside of that. Rebecca, do you want to add anything to training the agent to understand how we speak?
Yeah, I was recently working with a large bank, and what we showed them was just after a couple of pieces of information that we put into it, what they told us was that it came back with how they actually spoke. And it felt a lot more like what they were used to seeing, which they were really excited about because they said that that could save them a lot of time. So just being able to put in simple prompts into those governance documents really ensures that you're speaking the language of the business and the language of outcomes.
Yeah, I love that example. I think Katja is also saying, like in the chat, the prompts should use the language that's used in the journeys. Someone's asking data without knowledge. They're less successful than the ones who build everything in TheyDo. And of course, like ultimately, having the same language around the customer experience so that people actually are speaking the same language. Like that's obviously one of the benefits of like making sure that this actually scales, and you don't need to allow different teams to have all these different versions of themselves. Let me get some other questions in, because there's many. I'm sure we're not going to finish all of them, but I do think it's important to get far. Any recommendation for formatting a taxonomy governance doc for the agent to reference? 𝗕𝘂𝗶𝗹𝗱, sorry if I'm butchering that, says, like, any good recommendations? Like, maybe that's too big of a question, but Rebecca has some pointers, if we may.
We love talking about governance. We love talking about how we structure it. And one of the things that we want to do with you is actually come together and figure out, how do you speak, and really help us understand your organization, help us understand how you think about formatting insights, how you think about formatting opportunities, and then working with us to actually come back and say, these are the taxonomies that matter, these are the brands that matter, this is what we need to actually build out to make something that actually makes sense for our business. So when we ask you questions, it's usually so that we can determine what kind of taxonomies do we need to build out, what's important for you, and starting with that business challenge, what are you really trying to solve, gives us the information we need to build out that taxonomy, for you as a global team, but also as a market team, and really figure out from there, where do we go with that?
So unfortunately, unable to answer it like, here's how you do it, but definitely this is input for the agent to truly understand it, train it, continuously monitor that. One other thing, I think we can have one more question today, and I think like this is a nice one. Maria Koropko asks, could it run the analysis across all the nested journeys? Like AI can analyze L2 content and suggest content for the L1 view. And I'm curious to hear both of your perspectives. I know this is obviously possible, but what I think is actually happening is that our teams are people that are knee deep into customer experience. We love the journey. We love to understand like all the nooks and crannies of the journey, but we need to be in the room to present it, because it can be very complex, can be complicated, very technical, but it is the truth, what we are grounding our decisions in. But not everyone in the business has the time or the interest to look at all our journeys. They want to know, what about that churn insight that we had, or did it evolve? So to answer Maria's question, it's exactly what we aim to do, analyzing the depth, providing the tip of the iceberg, because the iceberg has to be there for the tip to be there. It's exactly what we're up to, and that's exactly what we're building. So Louisa, anything you want to add to like how you're using it to analyze the depth of your data?
Yes, actually last week, or was it yesterday? I don't remember. I had another colleague coming to me requesting a PowerPoint again. And what I did, I went into TheyDo, and for a subject that we worked on last year. And meanwhile, we had been touching upon that subject in other journeys. We haven't built the journey. It's a collecting in store journey. We haven't worked on that yet, but we had a lot of insights, and I knew that we had a lot of data as well, and we had some journeys that kind of just had one insight or two insights. So I used as TheyDo and created a doc for her, just kind of putting everything together, both for the too long didn't read in the top, and then just like build on so she could scroll as far down as she had time for. But that kind of enabled us to give the overview without building a journey, but just saying, okay, if you need to start working on this, these are the things you need to be aware of.
I absolutely love that. And like I said in the beginning, this is the start. This is the start of like actually activating all the data that's already there, building the context, like now doing it with Agent, but also what we're aiming towards. Like, and there was another question on the autonomous CX. Like, I don't believe we're going to have a full autonomous CX org and everything runs, but we're going to get close to it at some point in the future. We're building this context layer so that we can enable the rest of the org to self-serve, and we are actually like enabled to actually do the harder problems to bring us closer to the customer. And that's very exciting to be working on, but we do love feedback. So once this is out, we're going to be very closely working with some of you who want to and who can to get access to the next level of beta access that's coming, get these capabilities in your hands, but also tell us what's working, what isn't working, and share these stories like Louise on what actually is the meaningful impact that we're making, because we're all in this together. But building towards this world is what is making it exciting. If you want to see the agent in action, this is my last call to action for everyone. We are going to do a little roadshow in the coming month of June. We're going to be in Amsterdam, we're going to be in New York, and we're going to be in San Francisco. That is in and around the Forrester Customer Experience Summits. TheyDo will be there. So if you are joining one of them and want to see the agent in action, please come see us. If you're not going to the conference, but you are in town somewhere in June, let us know, because we will be there as well. And we're going to do some in-person events around it. So very exciting to get this in your hands. Like I said, it's rolling out right now. You're going to get access if you're AI enabled. Otherwise, reach out to your CSMs. And for everyone who likes to give it a spin, just reach out, and Rebecca, the whole team, will be actually working with some of your data to get this in place. So this is the first step towards autonomous customer experience operations. We're going to make many more steps together, and I'm very excited that we had a chance to show you today. Get it in your hands, and please let us know how it's working for you. Speak soon, and have a lovely evening or rest of your day. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Louisa. And see you all for the next one.
Thank you.